All right, let's dive into something a little spicier today.
Ooh, exciting.
We're talking sexting,
Okay.
but not the kind that ends up all over the news.
Right.
This is about how sexting can actually make long-term relationships even better,
I like it.
more intimate.
Yeah.
So we dug into some really interesting discussions on this.
Yeah.
And turns out there's way more to sexting than you might think.
It's true.
It can actually be.
I mean, we tend to think of it as just those, like,
Yeah.
racy pictures.
Right.
Or, like, the naughty messages.
Yeah.
But when you're in a committed relationship, it can be this, like, a way to stay close, even when you can't physically be together.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's like building an emotional bridge, you know?
Okay, so it's more than just a quick, hey, thinking about you text.
Exactly.
You're saying it's more like...
It's intentional.
Intentional.
It's like emotional foreplay.
Okay, I like that.
And you know what's really cool is that even if you've been with someone for years, sexting can help you, like, rediscover each other.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it can really shake things up a bit.
I like it.
It's like adding this fun little spark to your day.
Okay.
Like, imagine you're stuck in some boring meeting, and suddenly your phone buzzes, and it's your partner, hinting at what they want to do later.
Ooh, yeah.
Suddenly that meeting's not so bad.
Right. That's true.
Right.
And it's not just about turning up the heat.
Yeah.
It's about feeling closer and more vulnerable, even when you're miles apart.
It's really powerful. You know, sometimes talking about what you want can be kind of awkward.
Yeah.
Especially out loud. But texting, it's like this safe space.
Yeah.
You can say things you might be too shy to say face to face.
Right.
It's like practice for those tougher conversations.
Oh, it's interesting.
And, you know, once you've sent those desires in a text, it might be easier to actually talk about it in person later.
Wow. So it can make you more open and honest in your relationship overall.
Totally.
That's amazing.
Especially for couples who have been together for a while.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, things can get a little predictable after a few years.
Totally get that.
But sexting can shake things up. It's like trying new things in the bedroom.
Okay.
Keeps things fresh and exciting.
So you're saying it can help bring back that spark,
Exactly.
that desire you felt when you first got together.
Exactly.
Wow.
And that can, like, boost your confidence.
Yeah.
Your self-esteem. Just makes you feel closer overall.
Makes sense.
But it's not just about sending any old text.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
Yes.
If we're talking about sexting as emotional foreplay,
Mm-hmm.
how do you actually do it in a way that makes you feel closer?
Right.
What are we actually sending here?
Well, instead of just focusing on the physical stuff, try to focus on how your partner makes you feel.
Yeah.
Like, you could send something like, thinking about your touch just makes me forget about all my stress.
Okay.
That's hot,
Yeah.
but it's also really intimate.
Yeah.
It's about making your partner feel desired and wanted.
Right, even when you're not together.
Exactly.
So it's not just about the words themselves,
Yeah.
but the feeling behind them.
Exactly. And remember, a lot of the excitement comes from the anticipation.
Yeah.
Like, imagine you're apart all day, and you get a text from your partner saying, I can't wait to get my hands on you tonight. Right?
Yeah,
Suddenly, you're just counting down the hours.
totally. Okay, so we're building tension, expressing our desires, deepening that connection. But let's be real. Sexting can feel a little risky.
That's true.
So let's talk about boundaries.
Yes, boundaries are essential. Sexting only works if both people feel safe and respected.
Absolutely.
It's about setting ground rules from the beginning, like what kind of messages are okay,
Yeah.
what's totally off limits,
Mhm.
and how you'll both handle any, like, unexpected situations.
So it's not just about asking permission once at the beginning.
Right.
It's about checking in throughout the whole process, making sure you both feel good about what's happening.
Exactly.
Consent needs to be an ongoing conversation.
Yes. And you know what's interesting? Talking about boundaries around sexting can actually help couples get more comfortable talking about their desires and limits in other areas of their relationship, too.
Wow, so sexting opens up a whole new way to communicate. That can actually make the whole relationship better.
Exactly.
Who knew?
It's amazing.
But is sexting always a good thing? In part 2, we'll look at some of the potential downsides you need to know about before you dive into the world of sexting.
Definitely things to consider. It's true. You know, just like anything else, even something fun like sexting can have a downside.
Okay, so let's talk about those downsides.
Yeah.
What are some things that couples should think about before they start sexting?
Well, the biggest one I think we have to talk about is privacy.
Yeah.
And security.
Right.
I mean, once you hit send on a message or a photo, it's out there.
Yeah.
You don't always have control over where it ends up.
Right.
And that can be a little scary.
Yeah, definitely. I've heard those horror stories about leaked photos and messages
Yeah.
causing all kinds of problems. It's like playing with fire.
It is so, before you even think about sending anything, you really need to talk about privacy and security.
Okay.
Like, are you both okay with the risks?
Yeah.
Are you using a platform that's secure? You have to be on the same page about this stuff right from the start.
Absolutely.
Mm.
And what about the emotional side of things? I can imagine sexting might bring up some insecurities for some people.
Oh, absolutely. Not everyone's comfortable expressing themselves that way.
Yeah.
And even if you're usually pretty confident, sexting can bring up those little voices of self-doubt. You know, like you might feel pressure to perform or to live up to certain expectations.
Like you have to be some kind of sexting expert.
Right.
With a PhD in dirty talk or something.
Exactly. And that pressure can really suck the fun out of it.
For sure.
It can even lead to anxiety, you know?
Oh, whoa.
Like performance anxiety.
Right.
And that can actually make you feel less intimate.
Less connected instead of more.
Yeah, exactly. The opposite of what you want.
So how do we make sure that sexting stays fun and positive for both people?
I think the key is to keep it lighthearted.
Okay.
And playful.
Yeah.
Remember, it's supposed to be fun.
Right.
Don't put too much pressure on yourselves to be perfect or come up with the most amazing messages.
Right.
Just be yourselves, be silly, let the conversation flow naturally.
It sounds like it's important to laugh a little too.
Exactly. And most importantly, keep talking to each other.
Yeah.
If something feels uncomfortable.
Right.
Or if you start feeling pressured, just say something.
Absolutely.
No guilt trips allowed.
Okay.
Remember, you're in this together.
Yeah.
Sexting should be something that brings you closer.
Right.
Not something that causes stress or arguments.
So it's not some magic solution. It's about being aware and remembering that open communication is important, whether it's online or in person.
Exactly. And that actually leads to another potential problem.
Okay, what's that?
Consent.
Oh, right, of course.
We have to remember that consent isn't just a one-time thing.
So it's not like you get a free pass forever.
Yeah.
Just because your partner said yes to sexting once.
Exactly. Consent needs to be an ongoing conversation.
Okay.
You need to check in with each other throughout the whole thing.
Right.
And if at any point someone feels uncomfortable or pressured, they need to be able to say so.
Yeah, no judgment.
Exactly. No guilt trips.
So it's about respecting each other's boundaries.
Yeah.
And being mindful of how our actions affect the other person, even if it's just through a screen.
Exactly. When both people feel safe and respected, sexting can be a really positive experience.
Yeah.
But if one or both partners starts feeling pressured or uncomfortable, it can quickly turn into a negative thing.
Okay, so we've talked about the good, the bad, and the maybe a little bit ugly. What would you say is the most important thing for our listeners to remember about sexting in a relationship?
I think it all comes down to communication.
Okay.
Sexting, just like any other part of a relationship, thrives on open and honest communication.
So talking to each other, listening to each other, and respecting each other's needs and boundaries.
Yeah. Exactly. And don't forget to have fun.
Right.
Sexting should be a playful and enjoyable way to connect with your partner.
Yeah.
Not another chore on your to-do list.
Or a source of stress.
Exactly.
Okay. I'm feeling a lot more confident about this whole sexting thing now. But I have to ask, is there anything unique about sexting in a long-term relationship? I mean, we've talked about the general benefits and risks, but does it play a different role for couples who've been together for a while?
That's a great question. And you're right, it does have its own nuances for those who've been together for a while. In part 3, let's explore how sexting can be like a secret weapon to keep that long-term spark alive and even reignite the passion.
All right, so we've talked about the basics of sexting, the good, the bad, and how important communication is. But let's get to the good stuff. How can sexting help couples who have been together for a long time? I'm talking years, maybe even decades.
You know, you might think that sexting is just for new couples, like when they're still in that honeymoon phase.
Yeah.
But actually can be amazing for long-term relationships, too.
Oh, really?
Think about it after years of being together. It's easy to get stuck in the same routine.
Right.
You know each other so well, you can practically finish each other's sentences.
Yeah.
And while that's nice, it can also make things a little...
predictable.
Exactly.
I see where you're going with this. So you're saying sexting can shake things up a bit.
Exactly.
Help us break out of those routines.
It's like this playground for exploring, for rediscovering each other.
Okay.
Remember how we talked about sexting being like practice for those deeper conversations?
Yeah.
Well, it can be practice for your physical intimacy, too.
Oh, interesting.
It gives you a chance to try out different fantasies, different roles, different ways of expressing yourselves without any pressure.
I like that.
It's like adding this fun, almost mischievous energy to your relationship.
So instead of going through the motions, we can use sexting to bring back that spark, that excitement we felt in the beginning.
Exactly.
It's about rekindling that sense of mystery,
Yes.
that desire to explore and discover new things about each other.
And the best part is, it can all happen in the privacy of your own digital space.
I love that. It's like we have permission to be playful and adventurous again,
Right.
even if we've been together forever. But is there a risk that sexting could feel forced or inauthentic after being with someone for so long? Like, are we really going to be excited about a text after all these years?
That's where the magic of emotional intimacy comes in.
Okay.
Remember, it's not just about sending dirty messages.
Like
It's about
what?
connecting with those deeper feelings, that sense of connection and longing that you have with your partner.
Okay, so how do we do that? What kind of messages will actually resonate with a long-term partner?
Well, think about the things that make your relationship special.
Okay.
The inside jokes, the memories you share, the things that make you laugh together.
Yeah.
Bring those into your messages.
Okay.
For example, let's say you have a favorite memory from a trip you took together. You could send a text that says something like, "Remember that night and location? Makes me wish we were back there doing insert suggestive activity." Oh, I like that. It's like we're creating our own little world just for the two of us. It's filled with memories and inside jokes that only we understand.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that shared history, that emotional depth is what makes sexting in a long-term relationship so powerful.
Wow.
It's not just about the physical act. It's about strengthening that bond, that feeling of us against the world that
Yeah.
you've built over time.
This has been really eye-opening. It's amazing to think that something as simple as sexting can have such a big impact on a relationship.
It really is. And the best part is, it's never too late to start.
Yeah.
Whether you've been together for 5 years or 50 years, sexting can be a fun and exciting way to reconnect, to rediscover each other,
Yeah.
and to keep that spark alive.
So as we wrap up our exploration of sexting, what's the most important thing for our listeners to take away from this deep dive?
I think the main takeaway is this. Sexting is just one tool in the amazing world of intimacy,
Okay.
but just like any tool, it needs to be used carefully and with a purpose.
It's about communication, respect, and a willingness to be playful and adventurous with each other.
So if you're thinking about trying sexting in your relationship, go for it. But remember to talk to each other, set those boundaries, and most importantly, have fun.
And who knows, you might just discover a side of your partner and your relationship that you never knew existed. Until next time, happy sexting.
Responsibly, of course.